Croton on Hudson, New York, author of Phototherapy, Motivation, and Wisdom. Helping me out here is my good friend, Alec Ahrens. We've been friends for a while. We met on a workshop several years ago, and I'm just going down here to turn off the sound on Facebook, and I think I've done that. That's done. So I could just look at the comments here. Oh, we have a few people, it looks like. So Alec, say hi.
Hello, everyone. Welcome on this beautiful Sunday afternoon in North America, and wherever you may be listening.
Yeah, actually, it's so nice. We're cutting this session short. It's so beautiful right here in the Northeast. So we'll catch everyone next week. No, we're only kidding. But all kidding aside, we have Phototherapy Happy Hour with Juan Pons, where we answer some of your questions. We show your pictures. But I thought it might be interesting to maybe take a little deeper look into why we take pictures, not how we take pictures. And there's a big difference, and Alec knows this from the workshops. We're not just talking about the exposure triangle and f-stops and apertures and the exposure triangle and Photoshop and Lightroom and cataloging and all this stuff. So if you guys have questions, that's why I'm here today. So ask the phototherapist anything. And the thing is, just like with psychotherapy, you probably know the answer. It's a psychotherapist's job to help you find the answer. So today I'm really here to help you find the answer to your question. So Alec, how are the questions? Do we have any questions so far?
Well, I have a question. It might be good just to elaborate because it was a post that you made a few days ago. So PhotoQuest and phototherapy started with your reading a book called Bird Therapy.
Yes. And
right?
I think
I have become quite interested in taking pictures of birds. So I'm just kind of be helpful maybe for you to share how all this has come together.
Well, it's amazing. And thanks for asking how one tweet, how one event can change your life. And I was on Twitter. And I see that someone has a book out called Bird Therapy. And I'm always thinking, I always have my creative radar turned on. And as my son said, we were at a party once, and my son's standing next to me. And someone says to me, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a photographer." And my son says, "Dad, I'm sorry, I have to correct you. You're an entrepreneur and a business person who happens to be a photographer." So I'm always thinking about the business. So I see this book called Bird Therapy, and immediately phototherapy popped into my mind because on my workshops I see how important how important photography is to people. Sometimes when I ask them, "What does your photography mean to you?" some people get emotional and they get teary-eyed because I know they're photography is so important. I asked them, what does it mean? Oh, it's a creative outlet. It's a way of expression, a way of communicating. People say, "Save my life." They don't know what they would do without photography. So I started writing Phototherapy, and that was my most successful photography book out of 39 books before that. And then I thought, okay, how about a sequel? And then people asking me, "Oh, how do I find my creative voice?" And that's how PhotoQuest came about. And that came out just about a month ago. And what's interesting for the people who are here, for the readers and the viewers who are here, I'm looking at the books. The books, as you know, have no pictures in them because I want people to slow down. I want people to think about their photography and not my photography. I don't want them to be distracted by, a pretty picture, from a safari or Alaska or wherever.
No, it's slowing down is just critically important because, as you know, I'm recovering from OCD myself.
Well, I remember on one of the workshops that we were on in California, something happened. And yes, you have slowed down a little. You definitely have slowed down a little. Oh, someone here is from Chicago, Texas. Oh, Phyllis is here.
San Francisco. Daniel is here. Daniel was with us the other day when we were testing our technology.
Daniel's from Switzerland. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, we have a lot of people. So I'm trying to see if there are any questions here or people just here for advice. Oh, Linda is here. That's good. Hello, everyone. Now, I would like to ask the people who are here, what does your photography mean to you? Meaning, it's not that I take flower pictures. It's not that I take, landscape pictures, or I like working in Photoshop. What does it mean? So Jack Lawless says howdy. Nathan's here. So I think this is a good question, because if we think about what does our photography mean to us, and think about why we photograph something, right? I have a chapter in the book like where and why do we point our cameras? And usually it's like because of something we recognize, right? Whether it's some kind of shape in a piece of blue ice, or in a mountain, or a face in a tree, or we want to, copy someone else's work. But I think it's just so important to think about this, because this will make you a better photographer, and it'll keep you from just shooting your brains out, right? You know me with my one picture promise. If you're in a situation, if you could only take one picture, what would that one picture be, right? I promise people to get a higher percentage of good pictures. So I think it's an important question to ask, because everybody wants to become a better photographer. And it's not really about the lenses, and the cameras and the megapixels. It's all this. It's the mood, it's the feeling, the emotion. And I know Phyllis Webster, who's here. She was on a workshop with us in Casper, Wyoming. Oh, there she is right now. It's a way to express myself artistically. There's also a way to connect, right? So she was working on a project. I remember she took a picture of some cowboy boots, and everybody on this workshop, shot something different. Everyone who's on the page here, if they're in my backyard, photographing, or your backyard, photographing birds, right?
Right.
They would photograph, something different. And if we think about what do we want our picture to say? This is like super important. No, Linda Denise, the picture I treasure. Those are. Whoops, Can you read it, Alec?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, Linda, who's in my backyard today taking bird pictures.
Mm-hmm.
The pictures I treasure most are people I know. With 2 recent deaths, I felt grateful that I could provide beautiful prints to the grieving family.
Well, see, that's really important. And people ask me, I've taken tens of thousands of pictures in my life. What's one of my favorite pictures? It's a picture I took of my father. It's the last picture I took of him. He knew it well. I asked him if I could take his picture. He's in his den, in his robe, on his walker. And he knew, and I knew, I think, that was going to be the last picture. And I'm so glad I took that picture. And I actually can't show that sometimes in live presentations, because it means so much to me. I get choked up. And people have analyzed that picture. But anyway, it's so important. Yeah, let's get the best lens, the sharpest lens, the most megapixel camera, the latest version of Lightroom. Let's calibrate our monitor and printer, right, and camera using the Color Monkey and all this other stuff. But it's really these pictures of people that I hold dear. Nathan Goldberg says, for me, it's therapeutic and mental and physical release from a busy 9 to 5. Nathan is a very serious he's a fun guy, of course. He was with us in Costa Rica, a couple of other places. It is very therapeutic, and it's also it's good exercise. But Linda, who's watching, we joked about this all the time, and Juan Pons, and a lot of people think I'm too, and I don't blame them, think I'm too hyper to meditate. But when I play the guitar, I'm meditating. When I cut the lawn, which I did yesterday, I loved, I'm meditating. When I'm taking pictures, I'm meditating. And, I think, and by the way, Linda Marshall, 12 o'clock tomorrow, Monday, meditation, noon Eastern. We're going to have an announcement up on this, on our Facebook page. Right after this, tune in for that. Oh, Gregory Johnson is here. For me, it's a way to focus, right? Slow down. That's good. Unwind. A lot of things here. He likes the one-shot capture idea.
And he wants the R5.
I know he wants the R5. A lot of people want the Canon R5. Oh, here's Phyllis. She's commenting on the cowboy boots. They were for charity, right? So she was. I remember she worked so hard photographing for this charity. Oh, as long as Phyllis is here, if she could give our best wishes. One of our phototherapy members is in the hospital, Sissy Fry.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's in the hospital with pneumonia, and I think she was moved to the COVID-19 ward. I'm not sure about that. But Phyllis, if you could say hi for us, that would be great. But again, I would like to hear some more from the member.
So Rick, a couple that came in up top.
Yep.
So Stephen Gotts or Goats, I apologize, Stephen, but I identify with this one. Taking up photography took my life in a completely different direction when I retired from a technical career. The people I have met, the places I have been have entirely reshaped me. I can't begin to express it.
Yeah, I know, and that's when I first started asking these people, the people in the workshops, what does your photography mean to you? And when someone says something like that, they can't begin to express it because it's so very important and it's so personal, and it's so meaningful. I don't know what I would do. Well, I play more bass guitar, but it is such a creative outlet. I know you, Alec. I think you are addicted to photography. For those of you who don't, I think I met you 3 years ago on a Canon
3
workshop.
years ago, Canon workshop.
On a Canon workshop, and you were just starting out. And I say this to Linda too. I remember you when, right? And I've been around a while, so it's really fun for me to watch people grow. But I think it's really fun for individuals to see their growth. And I think that's what a psychotherapist wants to see, right? A psychotherapist wants to see, the goal of psychotherapy, I'm not a psychotherapist, is not to make someone happy, right? It's because happiness is relative. But I think understanding ourselves, growing, just feeling better about ourselves. And I can say this because I've been in group psychotherapy and individual psychotherapy, which I talk about actually a lot, as Phyllis Webster knows, and Myra, I don't know if Myra's here or not. What I talk about is how I was cured of incurable back pain through psychotherapy. So I think, that tweet, when I saw bird therapy, I said, a lot of people can use phototherapy, and writing is very therapeutic. And I think everyone here, I'm waiting for Linda Denise's book. I'm sure she could do a great book on meditation. And I think Phyllis could do a nice book. What does Kevin say? Kevin Barnett says, excited to learn about this group. You know what? Well, thank you very much. But Alec, aren't you surprised how fast we're growing?
Yeah, I mean, we're 1,500 plus. It's growing exponentially, and I think it's very interesting that there are photographers here that have joined the group and people who simply just like to admire the work of the talented photographers who are contributing. Because as you try and do our diligence before we admit new members. People don't know in this crazy world. We do a little bit of looking into their profiles and things like that, and a lot of them just have come to us because they like seeing images, and people have invited their friends to join because they like seeing images. But I do, Rick, want to go back because Mike made a comment, capturing a moment and emotion at a time of peak action is why they got into photography. And Jack Lawless writes, it's one of the few things I do where I lose myself during an outing. I get into the image I am trying to make and lose track of everything else while I am doing it. So that would, Linda would argue that's being in the moment. That's reflective meditation. That's being in the here and now, focused on the one thing and, and blocking out all other distractions.
Yes. Yeah. By the way, we're going to keep going for, I don't know how long we're going for. So if people do have technical questions, I'm happy to answer, a technical question. Someone asked me, I posted, if I could just digress. Juan knows this. When we had the podcast, I always digressed. I published a black and white picture today of a gentleman I photographed in India. I don't know if you saw it. And I think that's going to be the theme for the next phototherapy happy hour, Thursdays at 5 o'clock. Anyway, it's a picture of a man with a big beard, a great beard. And someone said to me, what lens did you use? What are your camera settings? And of course, that's a good question. But I said it's really more about the connection. And that's what I go for with the picture. And if I'm not connecting with the subject, I'm not going to publish that picture. Whether when it comes to a person, it's sometimes an animal. Of course, you can't always connect with an animal. But I said it's really more about the connection. And then I said it's really more about the processing because I remove the color. And when you remove the color from the scene, you remove some of the reality. And when you remove some of the reality, your pictures can look a little more creative and a little more artistic. So, yeah, the technical stuff is good. I see Marty Snyderman has a quote here. Can you find Marty's while I just give Marty a little introduction?
Yeah.
He's okay. Marty, I've known Marty. I think I met Marty in the 80s when, actually from 1980 to 2000, for our members who don't know this, all I did was scuba dive and take underwater pictures. I headed up a marine conservation organization, and Susan and I, we collected fish and brought them back alive from Australia, Fiji, Costa Rica, Honduras. I know Marty knows this. Anyway, we did live fish collection expeditions with Dr. Ernie Ernst from the New York Aquarium, and we brought the fish back alive. So rather than doing a photo workshop, these were marine conservation workshops. But anyway, I met Marty, and one thing great about I like this group because I'm reconnecting with people, and I know he's like one of the best underwater photographers out there. But I never knew he was such a great topside photographer because when I was doing underwater photography, I never did any topside photography. So I think you could read what Marty says easier than I can. And I think our members will enjoy watching this.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. I love the chess game with animals. I hope to capture behaviors and share them in a way that opens people's minds and hearts to the gifts we have been given by Mother Nature and need to protect. I often think that as kids we get it, and as adults the people whose hearts and minds, commitment, and wallets we need to win are too busy to stay connected to nature. My photography allows me to be in and to fight to save and protect.
Well, thank you, Marty, and that's what this marine conservation that I was involved in. That's what we did. It was called CDAM, and it stood for Conservation Education, Diving, and Marine Biology. Actually started at Conservation Education, Diving, and Archaeology, but we got more into marine biology. But Jonathan Scott, the Big Cat Man, I know Phyllis is looking forward to having him come on the program, and a lot of people. A week from Wednesday, he's going to be on, we're doing a special event. Just stay tuned to the phototherapy page. He's going to be talking about what's going on the Masai Mara with the big cats and how the habitat is changing. And the habitat's changing all over the world. And I don't know if Marty would agree with me 100%. We can see his comments here, but I think a lot of people today are not going to see what Marty and I and Susan Salmon have seen, like in places like Key Largo. You know, in 1980, Key Largo was amazing, and for scuba diving, and now it's not so amazing. And we have friends down there too. But getting back to how important photography is, and this group, I'm humbled oftentimes. You know, I've been a professional photographer a long time. Some of the flower pictures are blowing me away. I cannot believe the creative flower pictures that I'm seeing. It's very humbling. And some of the wildlife and some of the others. And on that note, maybe you want to remind people to add a topic.
Add a topic? The three little dots on the corner of your post allow you to add a topic. Please add a topic, because with 1,500 plus members and people posting so many pictures a day, the easiest way to view them is to look at them by topic. It's a service to Rick and Juan as they prepare for the happy hour. It's a service to our members who may be interested in one particular topic and they want to, get inspiration from seeing the work of others, and just to be able to click on the topic. So please do that. You can do it the same way from your mobile phone and from your desktop. Just click on the three buttons on the right. So we have our first technical question.
Yep.
And I think I can expand it. So expand it for you, Rick. So bird photography.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit. So Linda asked specifically about the need for a gimbal head to get into bird photography. What do you need to do to start to take pictures of birds?
Well, I see. I'll answer that by saying that Marty Snyderman agrees with me, unfortunately, and he says there are some victories in some places. But Marty would agree. He's a wildlife photographer. Understanding like fish behavior will help you get better pictures of fish. Right? If you know a parrotfish, which secretes this mucus cocoon before it goes to sleep. If you want to get a picture of a parrotfish with the mucus cocoon, you go like at dusk. You also know, like on the reef, you have the most action in the morning and at night when the diurnal and the nocturnal animals change places, and it's the same on safari. So to answer Linda's question, understanding animal behavior is really important. Respecting the animals is really important. Going for gesture is really important. Like, in other words, wings up or wings down with birds. So she asked about a gimbal head. A gimbal head basically, well, you can see my microphone here. It's not really on a gimbal head, but it can go in like all different directions. And with a light microphone, it doesn't matter. But with the heavy lens, it does matter. So a gimbal head goes on a tripod and lets you move the camera like in all different directions effortlessly. You don't need one underwater because you're floating around, as Marty knows. But anyway, it's for when using long lenses, it's good if you know how to use it. I wouldn't, recommend first time out of the box going to like a great place like Bosque del Apache to try to get pictures. You have to practice in your backyard. So a gimbal head is a good accessory, and there are cheap ones and there are expensive ones. And as always, you get what you pay for. Steve, says, Stephen posted 3 close-ups in one day. Too many? No, definitely not too many. We love seeing your work. Now maybe, one of the things we're thinking of doing, Alec and I have talked about this. We're talking about all different things, maybe starting a website, and we have different categories there. Because on Facebook, like if you want to see Stephen's, pictures, you have to scroll through, and then if he posts them in one day, you're going to have to scroll through that. That's why if you really want to see good pictures, you go over on the right on your computer and you click on the topic. It's very important to do that. We also want to thank Tommy Armstrong for being on the happy hour last week. Amazing photographer. Those who weren't there, it's recorded. He photographs paint on the top of a paint can after he juggles it. So this could sound boring. Oh, this guy photographs paint when he lifts the top off and he photographs. Oh, big deal. Let me tell you, these are some of the most amazing close-ups. Right, Alec?
Yeah, it's a Rorschach test.
Yeah.
All right. So Kevin Barrett has a question. He's a new member, so welcome. And he loves the vibe of the group. And he wants to know the best way for him to contribute as a newbie.
Okay. Well, first of all, welcome, Kevin. I like your little graphic there. I see that looks like a little line art drawing. First, I think this group is special. We have no political comments. Right? It's all about photography. It's all positive energy. And Alec and Juan and Jim Griggs and Linda, the other moderators, we really spend a lot of time trying to, reinforce that. And I think we've only had 2 or 3 instances where we've taken down posts. So we love the group. I don't know what I do without the group. I think I spend 2 or 3 hours a day, trying to get inspired. So what's the best way to contribute? Post a picture that you like, add a caption to it, and don't forget to add a topic. But you have to be on your computer to add a topic. And if you forget to add a topic, Alex spends about 12 hours a day adding topics because he's such a nice guy, and I add topics, and so does Jim.
It's getting so bad, Rick, I go on other sites and I try and add topics.
Actually,
I can't figure out why I'm not being able to add a topic, and I realize I'm not a moderator on that site, so I need to chill.
Well, actually, what's funny about this is that Alex just copies and pastes, please add a topic, and he got a note from Facebook saying that it was spam. But it really is about, Linda says the paint pictures were amazing. And so does Daniel. I have to get over to Switzerland, Daniel, when this is all over. Daniel's an amazing photographer. We had a workshop planned, but that didn't happen. So, yes, we love the vibe. We love the feeling. We love we love the comments. One thing, getting back to Kevin's comment on the other pictures. And that's one thing I try to do. Again, no kidding around. I spend about 2 hours a day, and I look at the pictures, and I often make a suggestion. Do you mind if I make a comment? And and I say it's just going to be a subjective comment, because you could look at my shirt here. I got dressed up for this because it's more serious, right? The phototherapy session. You can look at my shirt and say, that's not the greatest shirt. Well, it's my favorite shirt. So it's all subjective. So post comments, say, hey, what would you do different, about this picture? Do you like it? And a lot of people do that. They post two pictures. They post, like, say, a black and white and a color. There was a picture, and this got a lot of comments. I was surprised. Did you see the one, Alec, with a white flower against a flower against a white background? And he said, do you like this? Or he added a background.
Right.
And most of the people liked it the original way. So this is a great way to get feedback. It's great phototherapy, because a lot of times we think we're right. And when I was driving around in the 60s, can you see my Volkswagen van here? When I was driving around in the 60s with my Volkswagen van, I had a bumper sticker on it, and it said, I could be wrong. And I keep that in mind all the time. So my suggestions really are just suggestions.
So Rusty has a question, Rick, about publishing a book.
Yes.
When creating a book on photography, do you pre-visualize the images you would like to use and then go capture them, or do you have them and then create the book?
Okay, we have to get back to Marty's comment about the topic. So here's the thing about the books. In PhotoQuest, and I think you contributed in this section or other sections, I have a section on our superpowers. Like, what are our superpowers? Not like with Carlos Santana, and I talk about this. His superpower is taking guitar out of the question, right? Or Clapton. Taking that music out of the question, what's his superpower? And I think Santana's superpower is being very spiritual, being able to connect with the audience. He talks about making love to the guitar. He doesn't talk about, in his master class, all this other technical stuff. So we all have an inner superpower. Alex Morley, our friend, who a lot of the people here know, his superpowers, he says, is being a perfectionist. This is, and this again came from my son. We're having a discussion because I said people who are good at one thing are usually good at a lot of things. And he says that's because they have a superpower, right? So this is another thing I would like the people, Phyllis says, good question, thank you. I would like to ask people what they think their superpower is. And I think one of my, I don't want to call it superpower because I'm talking about, what I do, but I think it's just being able to organize and be able to see the pages and the book like in advance. But I do have a secret, not for these last two books. All my other 39 books are basically pictures and captions. Each chapter starts out with an introduction, and then I have a picture and a caption. So if I'm talking about wildlife, it's a picture and a caption. And then if I have like 20 pictures and captions in that chapter, and then I'm doing a picture on a chapter on landscapes, I might be able to take one of those pictures and put in the landscape chapter and just say, well, this is an animal, wildlife in a landscape. So I structure the books. You have to do an outline. You have to do an outline to focus your thoughts. But all those other books are just pictures and captions. In the two recent books, Phototherapy and PhotoQuest, I would get up in the middle of the night, and I have little pieces of paper. I have notes. I have one right here. I'd get up in the middle of the night, and I'd write down my ideas. Writing, by the way, is very therapeutic. And I would encourage, everyone has a book in them. My sister's coming out with the book. Chad Robertson from writingnights.org did this. He's the same, he did my Phototherapy and PhotoQuest. He's doing my sister's book called The Eves. Everyone has a book inside them, a novel or a how-to book. And there's an expression, if you want to become an expert on something, write a book about it. because if you can do a book, and it's especially in a print book, you better be right. So I think it's a great way to become an expert on something. Just learned that one of the Arizona, what does Greg Johnson say? I learned that one in Arizona while waiting.
Patience, because Stephen indicated that his superpower is patience.
Okay, you know what? If people could actually comment there, that I would love to hear what their superpower is. Patience is good. Susan Salmon, I think I think her superpower is being compassionate, and also it's got to be pretty understanding to be married to me for 45 years. In this past January. But all kidding aside, this superpower helps us become better photographers, or helps us be a better photographer if we understand what the superpower is. Like, I feel well, with people, I want to connect with the person. I'll do everything possible to connect with the person. Whether I'm smiling or being kind or using body language or whatever. So the superpower concept, it's not a new concept. You do a search on Google. Linda Denise says her superpower is healing and communicating and being a communicator. So Linda teaches meditation. She's not saying, oh, I'm great at teaching meditation, right? So the superpower concept is, and in PhotoQuest, there's so many people who share their superpower and understanding is one way. But patience, I think, is a really good superpower. Freddie Clark says determination. Yeah. Another thing that for me is I never give up. I act on just about all my ideas. And not all of them are good. That's for sure.
Well, I would add gratitude.
That's one of your
it's just to be grateful for that which you have and those things that are around you.
Well, look at Marty.
I think we've seen, Rick, right, over the last several months with the whole COVID outbreak, the things that we just took for granted that we no longer had access to or could see every day. People, places, and things. So you just got to be grateful every day the sun comes up.
Yes. Being grateful. I think having that goodness within us, being a good person, is good. Marty Snyderman is very active here, Marty. I've talked to Marty more online in the last month than I have in person. I think Marty, did you get the Nogi? I'm asking, and then if I think he got the Nogi, I'll tell you what that is. Anyway, Marty Snyderman says, understand this is important. This is a superpower. He thinks understanding the failure is often an important part of a lot of successes, and being determined. That's another one. Oh,
yeah,
Alex.
Kevin, I agree. I think Kevin's is a great one, Rick. Childlike curiosity.
Well, you know what? I wanted to get back to that because oftentimes someone will say, Susan would say, "Oh, you're acting like a 17-year-old." I say, "Thanks," And this I think is really important. I used to have a sticker on my wall too. It said, "Never grow up." Right? We're kids, and when we grew up, our parents would put our drawings on the refrigerator, right, with magnets, and whether they were good or not, they said, "Oh wow, these are this is the next Van Gogh," right? But being a kid, you look at the world differently, and I try to dress like a kid, except for today I got dressed up. I always wear a T-shirt like you have. I try to stay young at heart. I go bike riding. I go walking. I play guitar. I think if everyone did we'll start with one thing a day that reminded you of being a kid, I think that would be important. Imagine if you did 5 things a day that made you feel like a kid. Of course, it's not that easy because we're looking at the stock market on Friday. It wasn't a good day, right? We're looking at the news, which is we don't
never
even want
a good day.
Never a good day. So I think if we do, this might be another book, how to be like a kid. I'm just thinking that, and I could get all these people to all the contributors to add. But I see Linda on the trip. the people, she comes on a workshop and she's bubbly and things like that, right? Whereas some other people, come on the trip and they say, oh, whatever, right? And they're stiff. And I think as a grown up, we lose, a lot of people lose that childlike innocence and the feeling that we could do anything. And I would say I really recommend being like a kid. Okay, Phyllis says something about being a kid. How to be a kid? Don't take things too seriously. Yes. Well, I think this is really good advice. Nathan says how to be like a kid. Don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, it was Nathan's comment, right?
It was Nathan, and
don't take things too seriously.
It was Nathan. Yeah, but that's easy to say.
Linda does the hula hoop, and I got to say, having seen that Instagram video of Linda on that hula hoop, promoting something she was doing, she rocks that hula hoop.
Yes, Linda Marshall. Again, this is being recorded, so I think Linda, you could type in a link to where your hula hoop thing is. I remember the hula hoop. Some of the listeners probably are too young, but I was going to tell Linda this. I won the pogo stick championship at the local park by my house where I grew up on Long Island. I was able to go on the pogo stick more than anyone. But seriously, I think taking pictures helps us be like a kid. If we made a list of what are all the things photography lets us do, and I think being like a kid, expressing ourselves, right, being outdoors, having fun, right, meeting other people. Well, we can't do it now, so close, but it's like going on a play date, right? Actually, I think I'm going to change the name of my workshops to photo play dates. Right?
And just creating something, right? Because when you're a kid, you're creative, you draw, right? Like you say, everything hangs on the refrigerator, you make up songs.
You
right?
make
if
up
there's
songs.
Nothing to smile about on a rainy day, you figure out, right? Or at least when I was a kid, that's what we did, right? It's just about, entertaining yourself, right? And enjoying the moment.
Jack Lawless says Phyllis has an advantage. She's married to a big kid. That's good. That's good. So are there any other questions about anything having to do with the meaning of photography? And if you have a couple of technical questions too, I'm happy to answer those. See, I'm just looking at some of the other comments here. Cool.
You know what I'd like to touch upon, because it's a passion of mine, the importance of printing.
I know you love printing. A lot of people don't realize this, but in 2000, or actually in the late 1990s, what really, I don't want to use the word catapulted, but what really drove the digital revolution was printing, because the inkjet printer, it completed the loop. It put the control totally back in our hands, right? And we could do everything from start to finish. And there's nothing like seeing a print. And printing is very, very therapeutic. It can be very frustrating. So I would recommend, definitely calibrate your monitor, calibrate your printer. You can use the Color Monkey Photo to do that. Make sure the lights are right in your room. Like right now I have fluorescent lights on. I would turn those off because that kills the reds. So make sure your environment is right. Experiment with different papers. Experimenting with different papers because, as you say, Alec, your camera is your microphone, right?
Right.
Well, if the voice is coming out of different speakers, it's going to sound different. So a landscape picture might look beautiful printed on like cotton paper, right? Or a silk paper, a nice matte paper, whereas a picture of rust, will look good on that metal paper or glossy paper. But I think it's very therapeutic. I'm looking over at my Canon Pro 1000 printer, just seeing that print come out of there after I calibrate and everything is just it's very, very rewarding.
It's like the magic of the developer. Right, and in the wet darkroom days, and you just know that you got it, and it's something tangible to hold.
Yeah. Oh, Daniel says, I guess we're talking about being like a kid. He says, don't forget a new lens. Well, how much fun when we were kids. I know you like trains, right, Alec?
I like taking pictures of trains. They're cooperative models.
But did you have trains when you were a kid?
I did.
Yeah, well, now no one has trains because, watching a train go around on a track is not as satisfied as playing a video game. But anyway, yeah, getting a new toy, I think can add to your creativity, right? You get a telephoto lens and you're playing, like a 100 to 400, and at 400 you can see the bulk in the background, right? If you shoot at a wide aperture like you look now, you're blurring the background on Skype. So that's cool. So a new toy can make you feel like a kid, but it's really important to think about. One thing I like to say about pictures is to try to write a caption for a picture. And if you can't write a caption, maybe the picture's not saying anything. I follow up by saying, because people say, oh, that's really a good idea. If I can't write a caption, maybe my picture's not saying anything. Well, then I say, well, Beethoven wrote Moonlight Sonata, which sounds, like moonlight. Then he also wrote, Opus 27, right? So it doesn't really have a title on it. So it's just an idea. Kevin says printing transforms images into photos. I like that one. I like that one because, Ansel Adams said a picture is often looked at and not looked into. And with a print, you're looking at a print. I'm looking at a print up here on my wall. Print is reflected art, and on your monitor, it's projected art. And there's a big difference. And looking at that print and playing with different papers is important. Phyllis says she loves printing in black and white darkroom, but printing now intimidates me. I keep seeing dollars being wasted. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain how I do this. I'm looking around for a prop. But yeah, if you calibrate, you really shouldn't have to make more than 2 prints, right? And I sometimes I make 3 prints, but what I do is this to save ink. Say you're taking a picture of in Africa on safari, and the giraffe takes up like 10% of the frame, and you want a great print. What's the most important part of the frame? It's the giraffe. So what I do is I crop out, I make the print the right size, right, 17 by 22 or whatever. I just crop the picture of the giraffe, and I make a print of just the giraffe, and I run it through the printer. And if it's too light, too dark, too green, too cyan, whatever, I'll go back and I'll adjust the print. I'll copy and paste that and put it next to it and run the same sheet of paper through the printer. And if that doesn't work, I'll do it again. So I'm using the same sheet of paper through the printer, but I'm only using the most important part. Because if the most important part looks good, the whole thing should look good. So that's a way to save on paper. And Kevin says CMYK is a different viewing experience than RGB. Well, CMYK is a different experience. When I send my books to the publishers, for those people who don't know what the difference is, when you send a book to a printer, you have to use what's called a CMYK profile. And if you try to put a CMYK, as Kevin knows, a CMYK profile on the web here, if you publish one now, it will look kind of weird because the monitors are RGB here. So printing these, Phyllis says, great idea, thanks. So the CMYK profiles are different, but I think most people, if you're not doing a book, just go for the RGB profile.
So maybe, Rick, Nathan asked, and I think you covered it, but maybe just kind of we can go through it one more time. Different kinds of paper, right?
Yeah.
So different finishes on paper for different types of images. Maybe just a couple thoughts on that.
Well, we could have a whole thing, and maybe sometime we could do it, a whole thing on printing, because there's so much to talk about. First of all, I'm drinking water right now. At happy hour, we have adult refreshments, right? Beer or wine. If we were doing this early in the morning, I'd have coffee. Alcohol and caffeine affect the way we see color. So if you're printing at night and having happy hour, or printing in the morning and you're drinking a lot of coffee and you make a print, your prints are going to have different colors than if you're drinking water. So my advice to Nathan is don't drink and print. Sounds funny, but that stress affects how we see color also. So color, as Tommy knows, Tommy I know is an expert on color. He's saying I love those metallic papers. Well, he says he loves the metallic papers. Getting back to Nathan's, for his beautiful, beautiful pictures of paint, I think the metallic are great. But if we're photographing a Buddhist monk in a monastery in Myanmar, or photographing, I'm thinking of a low light, a swan picture in the shade, maybe a softer paper would be better. So I would say think about what you want your picture to say. That's really important. If we do this again, we could talk about sharpening. When we sharpen a picture, we want to sharpen for viewing distance. We want to sharpen selectively. Like you look, Alec, like you're sharp, the background's not sharp. But printing, I think, is, especially in these times, camera companies and printer companies, the printers are relatively inexpensive now, relatively, right? And if you want some therapeutic time, spend some time making a print. And before you make a print, make sure there's not a, zoom in. I'm not what's called a pixel peeper, right? But you sent me a picture the other day, and I zoomed in like 400% or even greater. Make sure, like you don't want to have everything set up and then have like a speck on there. But the paper.
I'm sorry, Rick. And to that point, right, I actually was in a rush, and I sent something out to be printed for an exhibition that I was to have been involved with. And by not blowing up the picture beforehand, I wound up with a shadow on the image that was in the image that was just so distracting when you looked at the bigger print that I wish I had blown up the original image, because I would have taken it out in Photoshop, because once it became, so evident in the print, it just kind of, the print then fell flat.
Yeah, well, again, a difference between reflective and projected. Actually, there's a lot of comments here on the printing. Someone would like, Tommy, getting back to being a kid, said it's really fun to play with different papers. And sometimes you don't know. Like I'm saying, the picture of the swan in subdued light may not look good on metallic. It may look awesome. And Edward Weston had a great expression. Getting back to Nathan's question about the paper, he said, I don't care if you make a print on a bath mat as long as it's a good print. So what he's saying is it's really about the print. It's not always about, the material. Think about, what you want your picture to say. Another expression is if you can't make a good print, make a big print, right? I mean, prints have a big impact. Well, Alec, I think that just about wraps it up for our first phototherapy session. We're so happy so many people joined. Does anyone have any last-minute questions before we run off? I want to thank Alec, who's become my good friend, for organizing this. We see Alec with his logo on his mic there. Alec is in how do you describe which medium would be best to use? How do you decide? Well, it's the same thing. And next time, when we do the printing show, maybe I'll show some examples. I'm going to wear my shirt. It depends, right?
There you go.
Because that's how you decide. Actually, I'm going to put a link in this. I'm able to do this afterward, right, Alec?
Yes, because we will post it in watch groups, and we can put the comments out there. Yes, so you can add it.
I actually did a little video. It's an 8-minute video for Adorama on printing, and I'll dig that up and I'll put a link in there. And it's not too technical, but I think it tries to convey the joy of printing. Also, when you make a print, just another thing. As soon as it comes out, it's going to look different, a few minutes later, and maybe sometimes the next day, because it takes a while for the ink to dry. So there's so many factors that have to go into printing. But again, getting back to being a kid when you're making the finger paints, right? Did it have to be perfect? No, right? So I would say my advice would be start out having fun, and don't spend all your money like on a great printer if you don't have money for ink and paper, because the ink is important too. Oh, Jack Fleming just joined. Does that mean he just joined the session?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, Jack, you're going to, I hope that you join the next session because we're drawing to a close here. But if Jack has a question, we're going to take one more question about anything. Someone says on scarves. Yes, that's a good idea. I know some people, Karen Hutton, who's a contributor for PhotoQuest, she was printing on scarves. So if you do a search, print your pictures on scarves or on T-shirts, whatever. This is also a good idea.
Okay, so Rick, I'm going to make a suggestion, 2 suggestions. So for future topics, because this was an experiment today, so if you'd like us to do this more often, please let us know what, in addition to printing, you'd like Rick to talk about.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is for people who joined us today, start captioning your posts.
Yeah.
This week, as you put pictures up on the site, put a caption on it. And then that way people who missed us today will try and figure out what they missed, and will join us whenever we do the next one.
And we want to thank Phyllis, who says a great therapy session. Well, it was good for us too, right, Alec?
It was. It was a great time. Had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and a lot of great comments. So thank you, everybody, so much. And I don't know when we're doing this again, but we will be doing a happy hour on Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern. So see you, everybody.